So my wife and I just got back from a 2-day homeschooling conference, the main homeschooling association in our province. We learned a lot, we have some encouragement, and we are 100% homeschooling. Let me tell you everything that we learned, as well as a few of my opinions on homeschooling and how great it is.
Fall is here, hear the yell, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
So I'm going to speak in generalizations. So this is mostly for Canada and North America. And then the one that we went to specifically for our province of Saskatchewan. Whatever province you're in, you can look up whatever your homeschooling organization is and go support them. Check it out. Homeschooling is becoming more and more popular for many, many good reasons. It became very popular during COVID when they essentially shut down schools. Our boys were not old enough during COVID, so we didn't have that problem during those government problems. We are 100% going to be homeschooling our boys, and we were actually homeschooling them already at a high level their entire lives so far. No one, and I mean no one, is going to care about your children more than you. It doesn't matter if it's a public school or a super high-paid private school. Nobody is going to educate your children in a more personal and loving manner than you, their parents. What is school? At this point, school is essentially daycare for larger children. A parent will look after a baby and an infant and a toddler until the point where they can use the bathroom themselves, have a little bit of independence, and as soon as the hard part's done, government wants your kids. Now, I will say it is hard having kids, very hard. We had 3 boys under the age of 2. So what a nice break it would be if we were able to send our kids to school during the day, so outsource their education so that I could go make a living. Now, we live in the age where women are no longer stay-at-home wives. It's kind of a dual income world just to get by. So in order for you to protect your children and educate them the best way possible at home, you have to make some adjustments that could be hard, and everybody has a different situation. So if you like fancy things and toys and a large house that you're never around for because you have to go to work to pay for the mortgage and the property tax and all the bills, both you and your wife have to work, then that's possibly a lifestyle change that you're going to have to do to be able to homeschool your children. Most people in society outsource everything. They outsource the construction of their house, the renos of their house, all of the utilities, all of their food, and the education of their children. That's what I would refer to as the rat race. So when you hear someone escaping the rat race means escaping your 9-to-5 job, but part of escaping the rat race is having the freedom to be able to educate your children properly and protect them. And I didn't even mention our little experiment with preschool and kindergarten. We are sick all the time. I've got 3 kids sick right now with some flu that they picked up from some other little snot booger kid at school. If our kids are sick, we don't send them to school to spread shit around. Other parents, they have a job to go to, and it's dropping their kids off at daycare to outsource everything with their kids. Doesn't matter if they have snot rolling out their nose or have a flu or are sick or nothing. We have been sick more than with this little public school experiment. I'm done. It seemed like a lot of homeschooling parents had a lot of religious connotations, a lot of Christians, and Christians are great, and you can instill the values that you want in your kids, as you should be able to. Now, this may surprise you. It actually surprised me, but in Canada specifically, and I believe in the United States as well, through some of these organizations, homeschooling's becoming more popular, probably because of a failing school system and a degrading of the education kids get as well. But things like COVID boosted it, and it's actually becoming easier and easier to be able to homeschool in Canada specifically. In parts of the world, so France, I believe, it is illegal to homeschool. In Germany, it is very hard. Other parts of Europe, it is very hard. I've heard if they're homeschoolers, you have to go in for 1 hour every 2 weeks to do an update to the government-run education system and things. And in Canada and the US, it's actually quite a bit nicer right now. With government, society, and politicians getting more and more crazy, one of the left-leaning politicians in our local community said the quiet part out loud.
Do you view this as a parental rights issue at all?
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, there's no such thing as parental rights. In Canada, there are parental responsibilities. And in Canadian family law, the primary responsibility of parents is to support and affirm their kids. Children have rights in Canada, and these kind of policies restrict the rights that children have in Canada.
My wife and I actually purchased, they were at the conference, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association Insurance, or HSLDA. It's essentially homeschool legal defense. So if you have a problem with the government or the system or a social worker, at any point there are lawyers on hand. Because we have 3 young boys, we just got a lifetime membership, and it's an organization I want to support. They're not specifically for Saskatchewan, Canada, USA, but they're actually a world-renowned organization to help protect the homeschooling community. So it could be just as simple as my wife going on a field trip during the school week on a school day, and some mask-wearing Karen says, blah, 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 and calls another mask-wearing social worker, blah, 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 and they try to confiscate your kids. I thought it would be great to have lawyers on hand, and the resources they provide as well on there for what you have to do to homeschool. So just to cover some of the very basic things, when your child turns 7 years old, you have to send the government, not a government form, but you send them a notice of intent, and these organizations help you with those forms. So you don't ask the government, but you send them a notice of intent telling them that your kids are going to be homeschooled. You're not asking permission, you're sending them a notice of intent. As well as in every jurisdiction, I'm sure it's different, but once a year, you send the government or the school board organization a thing of what you accomplished this year, what your goals are for next year, and forms that can be found from organizations such as this, or specific to my province, organizations such as this can help you with those resources. Now, what is schooling, or what is homeschooling, or what is it? Quickly, my personal story, I went to the public school system, and my parents instilled values that you have to do your homework, have to get good grades, have to regurgitate the information, and I graduated with the highest of honors, highest of my class, especially in math and sciences and things like that. And it wasn't until about grade 11 that I realized that all of this is silly and useless information and regurgitation. And most of the information either had a bias or an agenda behind it, such as in history, or things I would never use in the future, and that turned out to be true. I came out of school with high honors, not knowing how anything works, how to do my taxes, how to start a business, how to run a business, how to do bookkeeping.
I'm really glad I learned about parallelograms instead of how to do taxes. It's really come in handy this parallelogram season.
How to build a house, how anything works, what natural gas is, how heating works, how to plant food, how to grow food, how to harvest food, where food comes from, how anything is made, how factories work, how shipping works, how logistics works, how taxes work, how duties work, the entire system, the definitions of really important words, nothing about the legal system. I came out of school as essentially an infant for real life, even though I graduated with high honors. A curriculum. I was worried about some sort of curriculum. Did you know all the curriculums that used in the school system are essentially private curriculums that the school board just decides to use? I remember one, Horizons books. That's actually a private one, and you can just go purchase the Horizon curriculum, or there's multiple other curriculums, online ones. We're going to invest in a commercial laser printer to do activity books and maybe do some online one. I'm still looking into that. There's a million different ones, curriculums, and what is curriculum, right? What do you think about when you went to school? You had to have some science credit, but it could have been biology, chemistry, or physics. So some kids took chemistry, other ones know nothing about physics. Some people wanted physics and they know nothing about biology. You just needed a certain amount of credits to get a grade 12 public school education. My kids, if one's interested in chemistry, he's going to learn about chemistry. If he's not so much interested in physics, he's going to but not know about or do the physics or whatever. And it's the same damn thing as going to public school. Now in Canada, the school system and healthcare are government run. So that's why we have very poor healthcare in Canada. About 10 million Canadians don't have a family doctor. If you're sick in Canada, they'll help you government-assisted suicide rather than try to cure you what you have. And the school systems are currently massively overrun. The teachers are stressed, the classrooms are too big, the education system went down, they will not fail you, it doesn't matter, passing grade, and it really dumbed down the education system. So it was bad 20 years ago when I graduated high school and I went to public school. It's significantly worse now. Plus the mandated agendas that they're told to push on you and all of the woke stuff, I can see why a lot of Christians actually get into homeschooling, because it goes against anything that the Bible has to talk about. So if you don't instill values in your own kids, someone else is going to. For me, I never liked history in school. That's because we took history and it was very defined and had an agenda to it. And of course, me, for some reason, even going through public school, learning to unschool myself so that I could think for myself instead of regurgitate information. In school, they taught us about the Holocaust, but the other genocides and things like the Holodomor, that didn't happen. It must, because we didn't teach it in school. It's just Holocaust, 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 Holocaust. Your children get a better education watching the History Channel and YouTube at home than they do in school when it comes to history. Now here's me worried about, am I going to be able to give my kids the proper education? Should they go to school, right? You have your people, family members or things that are kind of normies in society that believe in the ways of school, 9 to 5. You know why school was created, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? To make good factory workers.
Homeschooling is not an experiment. People have been homeschooled for thousands of years. Government-run schooling is the experiment, and that experiment has gone to shit.
And we live in a day and age with something called the internet and even just YouTube. When I need to learn something, I go to YouTube. If you want to learn how to build deep winter greenhouses, you probably look up deep winter greenhouses and find me, maybe one of the foremost experts on building high-efficient passive solar technology. Do they teach that in school? No. Am I an engineer? Well, I think when people ask that, they think, do you have a piece of paper from some post-secondary thing that says that I'm an engineer? Do I? No. Am I an engineer? Yes. What do you mean? Well, I don't know. I design and engineer things and build things from scratch all the time. Most engineers with an engineering degree don't do that. I know journeyman electricians with their ticket and their piece of paper education things that they cannot wire you a residential house. They only do mine and commercial stuff. Now, I can't tell you how nice it would be to have a little bit of a break from my kids and send them to a trustworthy place for a tiny bit of time where I can know that they won't be screwed with their minds and some silly things that go against my value system won't be instilled in their heads. But that's not the case, so we have to homeschool. So right now I have a 5-year-old and 2 4-year-old boys. We're playing every board game that you could think of, just naturally, because I know that playing those games will teach them all sorts of different skills, from math to reading to wanting to learn math to wanting to learn how to read to even money. My 4-year-old's best game that they play is the adult version of Monopoly, and they have to fight over who's the banker. Even a controlled amount of certain video games, I set them up, my boys. It teaches them fine motor skills. It encourages them that they want to learn how to read, start, continue, save progress. They know all of that, and certain games will give them motor skills, left, right, up and down, this button's jump. You got to learn how to do things, as well as reading, math, and other things. At this point in the game, there's a thing called unschooling, not homeschooling, but literally not doing any school, just being present with your children. Your children will be better off than going to public school, being not schooled at all. It's actually more beneficial on your kids if you need more sleep. Do you know how important sleep is? It's very important. Let your kids sleep, especially if they get to be teenagers and need that extra sleep. It's better for them to just sleep in. But the little preschool kindergarten experiment, up early, rushing, put together a quick breakfast, try to put together usually unhealthy snacks instead of homemade soup or something when they're at home. On those days, we make homemade soup with bone broth or some real food. You can only give them so much food or preparation for all those snacks. Rush them out the door, drive them in, drop them off. Sometimes they're crying. They don't want to go to school. They want to hang out with mom and dad. And then feel like crap dropping them off. You don't know what government values are being instilled in their brains or silly things that they see that you maybe want to shelter them from. And then drive in again and pick them up and take them home. And how was school? I didn't like school today. Yeah. Well, what'd you do? I don't even want to talk about it. Because it's literally a kindergarten should learn or be at a desk for a very small amount of time, not a whole day. At the homeschooling conference, one person said we tried the public school system as well, and my kid was bored. All the other kids would be in their desk, and my kid would be up pacing at the back of the room. Luckily, they had a teacher good enough that just let him pace back there. And then somebody said, well, we thought our kid would have a learning disability or something. And what I explained is, no, actually, it's wrong for a kid to be sitting in a desk like that. It's actually right to be pacing at the back of the room. So your kid pacing at the back of the room does not have a learning disability or a problem. All the other kids that are forced to sit in their desk, they are the ones with the disability. Now, there's some cool statistics for homeschooling. I believe the latest is that 1.5% of kids are homeschooled. The average homeschooler graduates from a grade 12 equivalent education at age 16 instead of 17 to 18 like a public school. Homeschoolers all across the board have a higher IQ, and for any testing that's done, they're in a much higher percentile than any public school kid. You cannot screw up your kids. You just have to be present for them. Currently in our province and similar provinces, lots of teachers are on strike right now because of the failing education system. Immigration in Canada is rising dramatically. There's no housing, there's no health care, and there's no education system to accommodate the amount of immigrants that we have coming in. Classrooms are overrun and teachers are overwhelmed as well. They don't have the resources needed. On the other hand, the average teacher gets paid $90,000 a year, and they are asking for significant more resources and significant more money. Teaching is a very hard job, but the amount of multiple week vacations during the pandemic, getting paid to not work at all or have school at all for large portions of the time, and having your complete summers off, and a relatively short work day. Yes, it's overwhelming to have 30 kids in a classroom, and obviously there's no individual teaching and try to manage all those crazy children. I couldn't do that job, but $90,000 a year, and it's a failing system. Essentially anything government touches or runs is a failing system. And if you actually care about the well-being of your children, you should get them out of that failing system and look after them as good parents. So just a quick personal example from me. So I had high honors and the highest mark in math because 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's the answer. There's no other answers. It's 4.
Saying that 2 plus 2, if you say it's 4, that's racist. That sounds like we may be mischaracterizing it. What, if you can quickly sum it up?
No, that's not mischaracterizing it at all. Math is basically racist under this ideology because it says there is no such thing as an objective reality. So 4 might not be the right number. 2 plus 2 might actually equal 5.
In elementary school, in grade 4, they wanted me to skip a grade. I decided to stay back with my friends because I finished the entire math textbook curriculum for the year in 2 weeks, start to finish myself, because I was bored and handed it to the teacher. In high school, I was so bored that I switched from an in-class learning to they offered an online class, and I finished the entire math curriculum with a 99% correct average grade and did the final exam, and I did that all in 2 weeks instead of months. The teacher would get mad at me because to do your homework, you had to do these 80 questions and show your work for the answer. Well, how my mind worked a certain way, And once I understood the concept, then it was right all the time, and it was a waste of time for me to show my work and have to do repetition, because I learned it, I understood it, and then I wanted to go on to the next thing. In public school, there's no individual learning, so if somebody needs help with math, there should be more math. If somebody understands the math but isn't good at spelling, like me, then I shouldn't have to do math over and over again. Already, we're homeschooling our kids at the highest level. My wife and I are very proud of ourselves of how we've raised our children before even kindergarten and preschool. But already, one is good. One of the 4-year-old twins is very good at writing and reading, and the other one is exceptional at math. And using psychology and psychological tricks on them. This is all about psychology. Psychology is very important, which is, guess what, a subject that they don't teach you in any public school. I trick my kids to love math and reading and writing, and we do activities with it. So at the supper table, it's tough for us to get them to be quiet. I say, guys, we can't do math right now, we're eating, because they're like, hey Dad, what's 9 plus 0? And then I tell them a wrong answer. They're like, no, it's 9. So already I'm getting them to think for themselves. School is made for you to regurgitate information given to you. Regurgitation, not thinking for yourself in any way, shape, or form. But my 4-year-old will be, my 5-year-old will say, hey, what's 11 plus 12? And then within seconds in the other room, my 4-year-old's like, 23! He yells. They're at age 4. It's unbelievable. And we actually tried, just because I figured at a young age it was okay, and to give us, or my wife especially, just 2 mornings a week break. We sent our 4-year-olds to preschool 2 mornings a week, and our boy to kindergarten 2 full days a week. I asked my boys, what did you do today? Did you do any math? They're like, well, kinda. Instead of doing addition, subtraction, and multiplication tables, like, we learned about the number 3 today. Like, that's how far behind public school is. I have friends with kids in the public school system. I can't go into too many details, but at age 11 years old, they can't read, they can't write, and they can't do math. So you tell me what's better. Homeschooling and being present for your kids, or sending them to public school where they can't read or write or do math at age 11. Quite literally, no exaggeration, it's not a meme on Facebook, but in Saskatchewan, some kids will identify as kitty cats, and they literally have a litter box with kitty litter in for them to go to the bathroom in public school. Quite literally, if you have a little boy that feels like he's a little girl, he's allowed to change his name without even the parents' knowledge. Now, of course, one other thing I thought is socialization of my children. My wife and I made a decision. Well, first of all, we weren't going to have kids because this world is such a screwed up place. Then we decided that if we're going to have kids, we need 2, and we were blessed with 3. The second set was twins. So my boys are socializing between them, and we're not shut-ins. We socialize with other high IQ, not screwed up adults, and have conversations and include the boys in conversations with adults.
But if you homeschool your kids, they won't fit into society. Yeah, that's the point.
In the little experiment of preschool and kindergarten that we're trying out, is an absolute failure. The teacher says, 100%, nothing to worry about. He's the most social, he's the most kind, caring, sharing, not hitting, not stealing. Good kids out there. My kids learned bad words, hitting, bad habits, and everything at the little bit of preschool that they went to as a test. Homeschooling community, very important. Look on your local Facebook. Ask around and find people both in your province, country for resources, and then look for resources in your municipal district, school district, and then even hyper local than that, find local neighbors essentially. No more than 5-10 minutes away of people with children the same age doing the same thing, have the same general overview thing, and are also homeschooling. And you can socialize your homeschooled children with people like that and make your own little communities. You can go on field trips together. You could even have the other family's kids for one morning a week, and then they can have your kids for one morning a week, just to get a different perspective, different socialization, and free up at least a morning of your time as the parent to get stuff done. We live in a dual income world now. You're going to have to make sacrifices. The best thing I ever did was build a small house that didn't cost a lot of money. We don't have a massive mortgage payment like most people. We don't have massive utility payments. We don't have a massive property tax payment. Would it be nice to have a really, really big house with a lot more room? It sure would have. But then I'd have to, or my wife and I would have to go work, and the homeschooling wouldn't be an option in that situation. So you're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to find how to make more income and reduce your expenses to be able to homeschool and protect your children. Is it worth it? If you truly care about your children like my wife and I do, then it is worth it to make those sacrifices. You integrate daily activities, being with your children and present with your children, into all of the subjects. So if my wife is baking, that's a cooking class, home ec class, and a math class, and a biology class, and a chemistry class, all at the same time. And she explains those things. When my boys help me build something, that's industrial arts, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, welding, all of the trades. Literally, I know at a pretty high level, actually. And if you include your boys and they learn on hand, they're learning math, spelling, reading, instructions, like how to put things together, how things work in the real world, and they will be much higher educated than any kid in public school that doesn't have parents individually helping them at an individual level. One of your kids might end up with a learning disability or something in one area, or flourishes at math and science, and the other one's good at reading and writing and things, and you can specifically homeschool them in different ways. Like one needs more help in this one, so we know that. One needs more help in this area, so we know that. As our kids get older, the most important thing is to teach them how to be individuals, thinking individuals for themselves in the world. And again, another thing the government doesn't want, they want fact regurgitators and agenda regurgitators. They don't want people thinking for themselves. At a certain point, as they get older, you want to teach them how to self-teach themselves, just like I self-taught myself after I unschooled everything that public school screwed up in my brain. Dad, why is the sky blue? You know what, son? I'm not exactly sure. Why don't we look it up together? Dad, I think we should raise this type of fish. Why don't, well, that's a really good idea, son. Let me know what you need. Why don't you start doing some research and find out everything about that species of fish, exactly what they need, their entire biology, chemistry. And if you need anything or have any other questions or have trouble finding something, let me know and I'll come help you figure it out. I learned that for a kindergartner, they get so overwhelmed and bored after a short period of time that the amount of schoolwork that a kindergartner should do, like actual sit-down paperwork, is like a half an hour a day. So a kindergartner that goes to school and they have different classes and things, they are sick of it, they hate it, it goes against nature, and they're not learning anything anyways. When homeschooling your young kids specifically, if they get sick of math, like we do phonics and math books, and I know that I've got literally half an hour to 45 minutes where they're super interested, and then they kind of get overwhelmed and bored of it, and then it's completely useless that we say, well, you know what, that's enough for today, boys. Let's go. What would you like to do? Play a board game? Now, another question people had was, well, what about grade 12 education or a GED, like the equivalent of a grade 12? Many trade schools and universities don't require a grade 12 education. They might require certain classes. To get into post-secondary after homeschooling, you could go write a GED, or they're actually changing that. Government's changing it, going to call it something different. So in the years that your kids will be 16 years old, graduate with a grade 12 equivalent, they can actually go to university at age 16, if not sooner. So don't fret about it. If you educate them good, where they're well-rounded, learn to be self-taught, have very good character, have a higher IQ, if they decide that they want to go into some post-secondary, if they want to be an eye surgeon or something, and they need something you missed, then that's when you do it. In my entire life, nobody has ever asked me for my grade 12 education. certificate. I frankly don't even know where it is or where to look it up. And I graduated with high honors. Even the little bit of post-secondary university I took, economics classes, they essentially didn't barely teach you anything about economics whatsoever. Or I remember I had 8 classes in a row where they talked about what's the difference between micro and macroeconomics. Let's talk about this again. And I couldn't help thinking, but what a friggin' waste of time. Everything of value that I know in my life did not come from school. Absolute zero. Now, of course, back to what is education exactly, even university and post-secondary things. There's lots of colleges and institutions that you can go to, or just the actual universities. What is that exactly? Well, that's individuals put together some sort of course with a certain amount of things and probably wrote a book that they sell you for a lot of money to teach you something with their agenda, and then at the end of it, give you a grade as if you regurgitate that information good enough, and then whatever your grade is, then you get a piece of paper with a sticker or a stamp on it that says, I graduated from Bachelor of Political Science. So if I was interested in creating a post-secondary institution, I can go ahead and do that. What I would do is provide you a course. And what would that course be? I don't know. What am I a master of? Deep winter greenhouses, how about? Or permaculture. So what I could do is I could start out the Arcopia post-secondary education, permaculture and deep winter greenhouse passive solar technology courses. A bunch of different courses. And what I could do is I could write you a book that I wrote with my knowledge that I have. And then I could teach you all about that. And then I could give you homework and assignments, get you to write some essays and stuff that as long as you regurgitate my information good enough, then I'll give you a grade on that. And then we can write a final exam. And when it's all done, I'll give you a piece of paper that says, I graduated from the College of Arcopia with a bachelor's degree or a master's, or create up some special word, in permaculture or passive solar technology. And you can write that on your resume, and I'll give you a piece of paper that says, you did so, Arcopia, and I'll put a sticker on it for you. That's what education is. Or you can just go watch my free YouTube video channels and become an expert with no piece of paper. Sorry, you can't write it on your resume. And that's literally what education is. My kids are going to learn more about biology, butchering animals on the farm. They're going to learn all about photosynthesis and how plants grow and what they need, and the NPK and fertilizers and what's needed for good soil and compost. Hands-on chemistry, biology, physics, everything on the homestead at a higher level than people with advanced paper degrees reading from a textbook, which makes them a much better human being. When I teach my kids about history, for instance, they're going to learn about all different kinds of history. So it's not going to be in a specific agenda-related time frame with a specific agenda-related group of people or something. Dad, I saw these things about the Mayan ruins and the pyramids and how there's similarities between the Mayan pyramids and the Egyptian pyramids and the time frames and the carbon dating and things. And they're going to learn all about that, which they don't teach you in public school when you get a grade 12 education. So after learning as much as I can learn about it at this point and what I know at this point, going to that conference, doing some internal thinking, talking over with the wife and I, one of the most important things that we can do for our kids is take them out of the government school system and keep them close, because nobody cares about them as much as us, and they're going to be much better human beings throughout their entire life because of it. The public school system is failing, and it's essentially daycare for older children. To free up time for the parents to go do whatever job that they do to pay for their big house that they probably don't need and nobody's home for anyways, or just to give the parents a break. Well, you have to include your children. You had children. They're your responsibility, despite what some morons in politics will say.
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, there's no such thing as parental rights in Canada.
They're your children, your responsibility. Make them the best people that they can be. It's very hard to cover a complete 2-day conference in one short video, but maybe that helped you with a general overview of things, my opinions on things. Reach out to communities, start learning yourself, learn what you have to do, the intent that you have to give to the government, protect yourself with that insurance, sign up for whatever organizations in your most local vicinity. So if you're in Saskatchewan, sign up with the Saskatchewan Home-Based Educators. Give them money that support those organizations that are trying to support you from protection from the government and to allow you to homeschool without government coming and confiscating what they think is their property, which is actually your children. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
We don't notice any time pass. We don't notice anything. We sit side by side in every class. Teacher thinks that I sound funny, but she likes the way you sing. Tonight while I'm alone in bed, when silly thoughts run through my head about the bugs, the alphabet, and when I wake tomorrow I'll bet you and I will walk together again. 'Cause I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.